everyone, welcome to DevOps Info channel. In the previous video, we had a look at how to manage the updates and patches for your VMs by using the Azure Automation account. Today in this video, we'll take a look at one example of how to utilize the Azure Automation accounts for executing some on-premise actions from your site. So the Azure Automation accounts, by default, they will not have access to the resources in your on-premise environment because they run purely on Azure Cloud Platform. The Azure Automation accounts can be executed to perform on-premise tasks in your environment by using the hybrid Runbook worker feature, which we are going to take a look at in a few minutes. So, like you might have a question like, what is the Runbook feature? Like, if you see, take a look at the screen. I'm into the Azure Automation account which we created in the previous video. So there is something called hybrid worker groups. So this hybrid worker groups comprises of a runbook worker feature. So this you can use the hybrid runbook worker feature, which is one of the component in the Azure Automation to execute the runbooks which you have in the Azure Automation accounts directly on Azure VM or a VM which is running in your on-premise environment as well, or even a physical machine which is running in your on-premise environment. So this helps in the integration of the hybrid runbook worker through an option called Azure Virtual Machine Extension Framework. So this extension framework is responsible for enabling this functionality on your Azure VMs or on the Windows or Linux VMs, which is connected in your environment by having the Azure Arc enabled servers. If you want to take more information on what is Azure Arc enabled servers, you can read about it because having the Azure Arc enabled servers, it's a agent that would be able to connect that particular mission to log analytics agent or to an automation account. So when you do such kind of installation, then it is called an agent type. Um, so there are two types of installation the hybrid worker supports. The first one is called the extension based. So this extension based is installed using the hybrid runbook worker extension. So this will not have any dependency on the log analytics agents, which is reporting to the Azure monitor. Uh, this is the recommended platform as of now, which Microsoft is saying. And the previous one is the agent based. So with the agents based, you can connect to your hybrid runbook workers. So this would be installed after the log analytic agent is reporting to an Azure monitor, and then you can install the agent, and that agent would be reporting to your Azure Automation account. And later you can use your runbook to target any automation actions on your on-premise uh, or Azure VM. So, but now Microsoft is always stating the extension based. Like the runbooks can be this runbooks after once you complete the extension based installation or agent based installation. So the runbooks, like for example, I have the runbooks here. So whatever the runbooks, whatever you have here, this can be executed in the on-prem environment by using the Azure Automation hybrid runbook worker capability. For example, you can say like you want to perform some offboarding tasks for a user who has resigned. Let's say remove him from all the local area groups, set the expiry time, set the account expiry time, remove some particular attributes, and so on. So all these things you can execute by creating a PowerShell script, which you can have it in your runbook, and then with the help of the hybrid runbook workers, target them to your domain controller, not domain controller, target them to your management server and then execute this action. Uh, so the runbooks are delivered to one or more designated machines after being saved and controlled in the Azure Automation. Yeah. So like to get started with, what you need to have do is you need to have the automation account. In our example, we already have the automation account. Uh, Today in this video, we are going to take a look at the extension-based platform, which is not dependent on the log analytics agent. And this is the recommended platform as we uh, talked about in the few minutes back. So we will see this example on one of the management server, which will be acting as a worker, which will take a look at what is worker. So it's always recommended to have this only on the management server and don't do this on a directly on your domain controller, which is not a good idea. So to get started with, you see here is the PowerShell gallery, like where you need to install the on-premise hybrid worker. So doing this will connect your Azure VM or your like a VM which is running in on-premise to your automation account, and therein you can use your runbook to execute your task. So the easiest way of doing is the Azure Automation. So when you do the Azure Automation and deploy the automation, what it would do is it would do the extension-based installation, and after doing the extension-based installation, it is making your VM to report like a VM which is Azure Arc enabled or a VM which is running on the Azure. Sorry, Arc enabled VM on premise or Azure VM. Like by using this, they would be able to report it to the automation account. So in my example, I already did that. I can show you. For example, uh, I have to go to the moment when I do the option to Azure Automation, uh, it would prompt me to create a hybrid worker groups. Yeah, so the hybrid worker groups is the first and the foremost thing it would create, because this hybrid worker groups is a group that will contain a set of workers that is designated to perform the automation action what you're targeting from your runbook. So in my case, by default, there are two types of worker groups, which is first one is the system hybrid worker groups, and the second one is the user hybrid workers. So when you go into the system hybrid worker groups, these are the worker groups and created and maintained by the service for use solutions like update management. In the previous video, since we did the update management, these system hybrid worker groups were created by default. Okay. So when you're going with the user hybrid groups, this is like which you are going to create uh, multiple workers in this group, and then with the extension based hybrid worker, you can execute any kind of your on-premise task from it. So here first I have created one worker on-prem. So inside the worker on-prem, you will see the hybrid workers. So in our case, I've just created one hybrid workers, which is like the extension-based platform. So if you still go into this, this is of course a virtual machine, and you see the VM resource ID and everything, and also there are a few other things which you can look at it. Yeah, it's a VM which is running in the Azure, and there is one more thing which I wanted to show you in the settings. You can see use the hybrid worker credentials. So this is very important. By default, the hybrid job runs under the context of the system account. So choosing if you want to choose hybrid jobs to run on a different credential, you can use the custom that is based on your requirement. But by default, they run in the system context. Okay. So this is how the first thing is like you need to have an automation account. In the automation account, yeah, you need to have automation account. In the automation account, you need to create first you need to uh, onboard the workers. So you can do that via the Azure Automation, or you can do the install script, or you can do the manual download. But I would suggest to do the extension based, which is the Azure Automation. And the moment when you do that, later you would see the hybrid worker groups that would be created. In the hybrid worker groups, you have to add the workers on your own. So you see, even here I have an option to add the worker, but since it's an example, I've added only one of the hybrid workers over here. And you see the platform, it is extension based. So just in case if you're adding this through the the agent based. So here it would see the you would see the platform as agent based, but in our case it's extension based. So it is extension based we see here. And the next thing what you need to do is like you might have a question how this hybrid worker function. So this is like a very good example, sorry, very good article that came from Microsoft. So it gives you more information of how the hybrid works. So like a little bit of zoom. I'm going to show you this. It's going okay. So over here, if you see, as I stated, like this is the hybrid runbook VM extension, which is recommended way. And this VM extension is listening to a hybrid runbook worker group, which we have over the automation account. And this hybrid worker group can have the multiple workers. So in this case, like in the example of Microsoft, you see like two hybrid and runbook worker groups, which are Arc enabled VMware vSphere, which is running on your data center. So these VMs are having the Arc enabled agents. So with that, you have enabled the runbook worker extension, and they are reporting to your hybrid runbook worker group. The same thing you can go for the Azure. So in the Azure VMs, like it's let it be Windows or Linux, you have the worker runbook VM extension that is going to again report it to the worker group, and then you can target your runbooks for any actions. This is the way it creates. So, but one important thing that you need to keep in mind is like one worker group can listen only to one automation account. Like for example, if you have one automation account, uh, and then you have created one worker group, in the worker group you can have multiple workers, but workers is nothing like a VM, which is going to execute your task, a runbook that you're going to target from the cloud. But you cannot have one VM which can be a worker for multiple automation accounts. So one VM can be only for one automation account. So that's what it says. A hybrid worker can only listen for jobs from a single automation account. So you need to keep in mind that let's say you have enabled the 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 updates management. It will have the system hybrid worker groups for your on-premise VMs or for your Azure VMs. So that can also listen only to the same automation account if you're going to use any kind of custom user hybrid worker groups. If you're going to target any kind of runbooks, then you need to use only that same automation account, because you cannot, if you try to target a different automation account, then it's not going to work. So that's the recommendation even given from the Microsoft. So for machines hosting the system hybrid runbook work managed by update management, they can be added to hybrid group. So you must use the same automation account. So that makes sense because one worker can listen only to the same automation account. Yeah. So the request is like every time when you start a run book, the hybrid worker works on polling mechanism every 30 seconds. So this is also very important. And there are some port requirements which is given in the bottom. If you have a proxy, there are some options. Firewall, usually port 443, but you can still have a look at it and verify what are the network requirements based on your environment. So going further, in order to show you an example, I have just one of the hybrid uh, worker which I have present on a VM which is running on the Azure. So this is running. So what I'm going to do is when you go into the automation accounts, I'm going to the runbooks. In the runbooks you see two options which I have created. Like one is for the create ad user reset password on prem. So like you can also import a runbook of your own PowerShell, or you can browse the gallery. So the first one is one of the example which I took from the browse gallery. This is create ad user, which is really good. I wanted to show in the example. So even for example, when you create a runbook, you can just select the name, for example, testing disable. I'm just putting testing uh, disable user, something like this. And then you can see the runbook type, PowerShell or PowerShell workflow, whatever you want, you can choose. And the runtime version you need to select based on your requirement. So you see the 7.1 is in preview at the moment. So going back to the automate, I wanted to show you the example. This is create AD user. So it's a script which I took it from the browse gallery. So I did not create this. It was created by already a contributor. So this one, you need to do some little bit of modification to listen to your OU path and your domain which you wanted to create. So the user principal name. So all these things, the moment after you do, what you need to do is just go back the create AD user. You just need to click on start. The moment when you start, it is going to show the name, the first name, last name. So for example, for this demo, I'm putting test automate. City is going to be Almere. Office is going to be Amsterdam. Password, yeah. In this example, it is asking the password, but yeah, it's not a it's not going to be like this when you do it for production. But I'm just putting some password and then okay. So and the mobile phone, I'm just giving some numbers, and also the office number. It's going to be the some random numbers. So here, in the run settings, like when you enable the hybrid worker and you have the hybrid worker listening on the extension based or agent based, you will have the option to run on Azure or hybrid worker. Since this PowerShell script is going to target on creating a user account, I have to select hybrid worker and then choose the hybrid worker. We have worker on-prem. I'm just clicking on OK. The moment when you click on OK, it is showing the status as queued. So which means like okay, it's doing some action. So we need to give it some time. After some time, I'm just going to see even without refreshing it, showing the status as running. Like even you could see the output. Like for example, what is the status, and if just in case if you see it is not going further, you have the errors, warnings, and also all logs. Even there are some exceptions, all these things. In our case, it is still running. And this the worker group will poll every 30 seconds. That's what we saw uh, in the explanation of the Microsoft document. So we are just going to see for some time. It says status is completed. So if you see the output, the account created, and there is no errors. So there is no warnings also. So just going to the the hybrid worker group, so the hybrid worker, which is the management server in my case. So I'm just going to the OU. Let's see the account what we created is present. You see the test automate, the account which we created is present. And also the description, you see, this account was created by using Azure Automation and OMS. So it just populates that particular value, and also you would be able to, it is just created. So it's just fantastic, right? Like you're able to manage your automation completely from the cloud, even for your on-premise resources. So this is one of the best option which I could say. The extension based approach really greatly simplifies the installation and management of the the on-premise tasks from the Azure Automation account itself. This is like the extension based approach is giving you a seamless onboarding, ease of manageability, and also it's the authentication wise, it's really easy. It's because it's using the so-called system assigned managed identities. Because one thing I also wanted to tell you, because you have to give a permission on the OU where you're creating it. Just for this example, because for this example, I wanted to just create a user on OU called EU. So I just gave delegate control, and I added the particular hybrid worker as a editor on this particular delegate control. If you're not going to do this, then if you try to run the script from a system context, it is simply going to throw an error, because your hybrid worker is the system context in this case, and it needs permission to execute that particular uh, AD action. So you need to make sure that you're giving the right permission for doing this task. So like this kind of uh, AD tasks, like disabling a user, resetting a user password, or setting an AD attribute, all these things can be done from the Azure automation account through the hybrid worker agents, through the hybrid extension based approach. So to automate the operations on multiple Azure resources and on-premise environments, you can definitely use this option, and this hybrid uh, worker agents or the extension agents is definitely a very good option, and that's a good feature which would really help in managing your on-premise environment by using the Azure automation accounts. So this is really a good option which I would really help to tell everyone to explore this. And by using this, you can definitely manage your automation tasks completely, your on-premise automation tasks and non-Azure automation tasks through the automation account which you are creating in the Azure environment. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.